Hello everybody. Today we are going to go over configuring our radio in our RoboRio. So the first thing, doesn't really matter which order we do them in. You of course want to make sure you have a fully wired robot and whatnot, or at least power to these different devices. So the first thing that we are going to go ahead and do is we're going to image the RoboRio. So we're going to open up the RoboRio imaging tool. It should pop up like this. So it's going to look for RoboRio targets. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. There's a USB through printer cable port on the top of the RoboRio, and there's also an Ethernet cable that goes to our radio, which we will go ahead and do here in a minute. So we are going to do it through Ethernet just because that's a longer cable I have and it's the most convenient. You're probably not supposed to do it this way, but we've never had a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and then plug in this Ethernet cable into my laptop and into the RoboRio, unplugging the radio from the RoboRio. So once we do that, if we go ahead and come over here, um, that's not what I meant to do. Right click on your internet and go into your network settings. We want to pull up the adapter options. So in here we want to disable anything that we're not using right now. Um, so we're not using, I have more than you probably will. So disable like the Wi-Fi and all that should happen. All you should have is one Ethernet thing here. So if you go back here and then go ahead and hit rescan after you have everything plugged in and connected. And sometimes it takes a couple tries of rescanning for this to work properly. So as you can see, it did find it. It's going to get startup stuff. So we're going to go ahead and click that. First thing that we're going to want to do is format the target. So in order to do this, you would just click this, select your image, whatever the newest one is. Right now we only have one because it's the beginning of the season. And you would go ahead and click reformat. I'm not going to click it. When you click it, it goes through a bunch of stuff and it takes a while to do, so I'm not going to do it right now. So then after that's all done, you're going to go ahead and use the same target and go to update the firmware and then do the same thing here. So if you look at these images versus what we have on our information, so the current image is actually the same as the image we'd be installing. So this one's already up to date. And to update the firmware, this has the 6.0.0 and this is also 6.0.0. So everything's up to date here and we don't actually need to go through with that. But if it is out of date, you're going to want to go ahead and reformat and then update the firmware. So now that that's done, we're going to leave all of these settings the same and we're going to go ahead and go into the configuration utility. A prompt's going to come up and it's going to ask if you want to allow it to make changes, and go ahead and hit yes. So now we are going to want to move that Ethernet cable to our radio. And if you see Ethernet 3, it should be whatever one is here. So if you look, it is Ethernet 3 where I have it plugged in here. So we're going to hit OK. And if you actually hit the wrong one, you can always go up here to Tools and then change the network interface and go ahead and change that. So we're going to want our team number, the robot name. So for instance, I'm doing this on our big red robot, so we're just going to name it red. And then we don't need a WPA key. All of this stuff can stay the same. Then we are going to want to plug this into this port right here that it shows in that picture there. So now with that plugged in, we're gonna go ahead. We'll allow that because it needs to be able to talk back and forth. So the first thing we're gonna do, whoops, somehow this got deleted, is load that firmware again. So let's see, error finding NPF device. Try disabling all other adapters. Please reset bridge and try again. So we ran into an error, which is this is probably good for the video. So now we got to try to figure this out. Realtek USB. Okay, So let's try this again and just see if it works. So it did not work. We can unplug it and go ahead and plug that back in and try it again. Okay, so it's still not working. So what if we try to change network interface? We only have one. So since that's struggling, we are going to unplug the power to the radio and plug it back in. This is called power cycling. Give it a moment and see. Pretty sure the issue that I'm having is because I am going through a USB-C to USB adapter. And I believe that's going to be what's causing my issue here. So these are our other adapters. The only thing we don't have disabled is our Bluetooth, so we're going to go ahead and disable that and see if that allows us to do what we need to do. Okay, so that did fix it. So here it says plug the radio Ethernet into the PC, which is already done. Apply or cycle power to the radio. So that'd be unplugging it and plugging it back in. So we're going to do that now. So all the lights should turn off when you unplug it. And just go ahead and plug it back in. And some of the lights will blink. And this takes a moment. So we are going to let it do its thing. And we will be back in a few moments. Okay, we are back. So once that's finished, it will say radio firmware flash successfully. So once that's done, we're going to go ahead and leave all this stuff in and hit configure. And if that worked, we shouldn't run into any other issues. Sometimes we just have router issues, and this is just how we tend to fix it, is just by resetting it. So let this go through its thing. It doesn't usually take very long. And program successfully and success. So everything's all good there. We are going to go back into our adapter settings, and we're going to go ahead and re-enable some of this stuff just so I don't forget later. Okay, re-enabled. We can look at our driver station here. Just to make sure we do have a connection. So I'm going to, we don't need to worry about this right now. We can just X out of that and X out of that. So if I plug back in my radio and my cable for my RoboRio, and then go ahead and look at my Wi-Fi, and as you can see right here is our robot that, or our radio that we just configured. So we're going to go ahead and connect to that. And this is just because we already have some code on here. So we do have communications, and it does have code. We don't have any joysticks plugged in right now, but that's okay. So as you can see, our RoboRio and radio configuration, everything went the way it was supposed to, and we have communications. So the next step is learning how to make it drive. That's all I have for now, and I'll see you in the next one.